The Singer 99K sewing machine was introduced in 1911 as a response to the growing demand for a lighter, more portable domestic sewing machine that did not need to be used in a special table. In 1911, it had a list price of only 6 to 10 pounds, although this was reduced to 5 pounds for cash purchases. The 99K was a 3/4 size version of the established full-size Model 66K. It used an identical mechanism and many of the same parts other than the basic body casting. The 99K stayed in production until around 1958. The Singer 99K was a sturdy and reliable machine that was easy to use. It became very popular with occasional home users because at 22 pounds it was more manageable than full-size machines, and it came in a storage container, very much like this one. In 1921, the company introduced the option of a Singer sewing machine that was electrified, making the 99K the first portable electric machine. The 99K will sew most fabrics, from fine delicates to denim or leather, and will handle any normal household sewing task with ease. What do you think, Dr. Singer? Is that a bunch of malarkey? No, I would say it's fairly spot on. And what you're seeing in this shot, along with our very good-looking Dr. Singer, is on the right, you're seeing a machine from my personal collection, which is the aluminum version of the 99K. And on the left is Debby Carver's machine as well. Now, both of these machines that you're going to see shortly unveiled are both from 1922. Not only that, they have the identical birth date of August 1st, 1922. They also share the fact that they both come from the Y series of manufacturing codes. Where they differ is one is cast metal, the other one is cast aluminum. And the other difference as well is that Debby Carver's on the left again comes from a production group size of about 35,000, while mine on the right comes from a production size of only 4,500. So they didn't make very many of these aluminum versions, at least back in 1922. It was kind of a trial basis just to see how they would, how they would be received. Everybody likes solid metal, and aluminum back in the 1920s was still a little bit of a question mark. But nonetheless, the bragging rights again of the 99K was that it really stepped in the space and gave a new option to folks that had been pretty much anchored to tables, specialized tables nonetheless. And it came in, even Debby's came in only at about 22 pounds. So you can imagine how much lighter the aluminum version was that came out in the same year, on the right-hand side there in the shot. So let's take these covers off and take a look at these two machines. And again, Debby's was a Goodwill find and did not come with a cover, so I had to go digging through my personal collection. And then, as you may have seen in some of the Facebook shots, I went ahead and restained the base that Debby's machine came in from Goodwill, and also the cover, the bentwood cover, so that they matched. It just seemed to make sense. Dr. Singer, sir, I'm going to move you back to a safe spot. And thank you so much for getting all of this set up. Yeah, I know Mr. Bean was out dancing and he didn't help you at all. Yeah, Mr. Bean, he loves dancing, doesn't he? So I'm going to take this lid off first. And to answer the question that some of you had, with the handle the hand crank style handle that's on here, I'm able to fold it in so that you're able to leave the hand crank on with the lid on. So I'm going to move Debbie's bentwood cover to the rear of the workshop over here to keep it safe. And you'll get a first look at Debbie's machine as well. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around so you can kind of see how easy it is. So once you take the cover off, and I'll kind of zoom in a little bit on this so you can watch it a little bit closer. And you can see the difference between Debbie's base and this cover over here. I haven't done a thing to this yet. So there you can see the hand crank on the right side of the machine. It's kind of tucked in right now. And it's real simple to get it back into position. You just rotate it straight up. Kind of wiggle it a little bit. Rotate it straight up. Pull this little pin right here. And then you can slide it into place. And it'll lock in position so that you're all set to resume whatever project you have underway. And you'll notice as I do a magnet test on Debbie Carver's, kind of come out in this shot just a little bit. So I do a magnet test on Debbie's and go to the body of the machine. This one is obviously all metal because that magnet is latching on fast and furious. Same thing here. No difference here. And certainly no difference right over here. Or here. Or even on the bed. You can hear it latch on there. It's all metal. Now in contrast, if we go over to my machine, that's in my personal collection. Again, Debbie's is still very, very rare. Because remember what I said? If a machine comes from a manufacturing group size of less than 50,000, it immediately goes up exponentially in value. So with only 35,000 made in this production group class back in 1922, Debbie's machine, let's just say when I ship it to her, I'm going to insure it fast and furious because it's got a lot of value. A lot of value. But mine over here was even, I guess, a little bit more rare because I think they were kind of testing out the aluminum thing. So I'm going to take this bentwood cover off. And you will notice before I move this out of the shot, the handle on this one is quite a bit different. Quite a bit more bare bones. I'll just kind of zoom in on it. Bare bones compared to, and I'll bring Debbie's back out, the one that I matched with her base. So there's this one. Bare bones, piece of basically cast metal from one side to the other. And then they decided to kind of step it up a little bit. They decided to step it up. It was almost in the shot. And they added this cool comb style type handle. And I'm sure there's probably a technical term for it, but I'm just calling it kind of a comb style. And then they added these other appointments to it as well that, in my opinion, just really raised the classiness of this bentwood cover in relation to the 99K. And why not? It's a classy machine that Debbie got, and I wanted to really send it back even looking better than it did when it arrived here. So I'm going to move this one off the shot again as well. Now what I was about to show you, if I come over to my machine, which by the way has not been cleaned up, has not been enhanced in any way, so but still it's not a bad looking machine. If I took it through my restorative process, I'm sure a lot of folks would love to get their hand on this model because, like I said, there are only 4,500 made in this production group, which I mean, that's pretty rare. That's pretty rare. You sometimes get into some of the industrial type machines that were made in very small quantities because there was less demand for them in those numbers. So 4,500 is way cool. Way cool. So the thing you're going to notice immediately is if I try the same test on this machine that I did with Debbie's, no reaction from the magnet whatsoever. Not here, not here. Now if I go all the way over here to this, the stitch length controller, I should be good to go. There we go. Or to the bobbin winding system. Got to turn my screen around. I can't even see what you're seeing. Or to the balance wheel. It's kind of tilting a little bit, but maybe if I try it from the side. Well, it's hanging on, but it's not hanging out very straight. Or the spool pin. Or the light. Or the presser foot controller to increase and decrease. Or the stitch length controller. We even got a response kind of from that. Yeah, it's latched down, but it's not standing out straight. Or the take-up arm. Or actually, this is the take-up arm, excuse me. There we go. This is part of the presser foot assembly right here. I get a response from that too, a solid response. Yeah. And the faceplate. So all of those parts are metal, but the rest of the machine, all aluminum. All aluminum. Even this plate right here that has a serial number is aluminum as well. And you'll notice that right away because the magnet is not reacting to it in any way. So this was a pretty cool idea. And some of you might be wondering, well, what is the net weight difference between your machine, Scott, that we're looking at right now, and Debbie Carver's machine on the left? That is a heck of a good question. And if anybody wants to do some research and find out what it is, then I think that would be way cool. And if any of you are mathematicians, knowing that the net weight of Debbie's machine, according to my research, is right around 22 pounds. 22 pounds is what Debbie's net weight on her 99K is, being made out of all metal. So let's see, what is the difference? What is the difference between aluminum and metal as far as weight? Let's see here. I saw this once before on here. I want to say that it's 33% lighter. And then when you get into magnesium, it's significantly lighter. Let me try a different search. How much lighter is aluminum than metal?
According to the Aluminum Association, aluminum is about 1/3 the weight of steel, meaning parts can be made thicker and stronger while still reducing weight in vehicles and other applications.
She is so smart, isn't she? She is such a smarty pants. So she's saying about 1/3 lighter, which if you do the math, it's going to be pretty doggone close to 33%. So if you take the 22 pounds, didn't I say 22 pounds as far as the basic weight of the 99K, and then take 33% away, is going to give you the net weight of what my aluminum version of the 99K is on the right. And if any of you want to crunch the numbers on that real quick, again, Debbie's is right around 22 pounds. Mine is going to be 33% lighter on the right, the aluminum version of the 99K. Post that in the chat and I will send you something special. So any of you mathematicians can crunch those numbers right now, because math is not my strong point. It's not. I don't like math a whole lot. And I certainly respect and admire those who do like math. You know what I mean? All right. So it's just fun to contrast. And then as you look at these two machines, again, Debbie's is going to be a lot better looking because I've gone over it. But here you've got the aluminum version. And you've seen these in some of the Facebook shots as well. So that's aluminum. You can look at the even the decal set is going to be identical to Debbie's. And here you've got the metal version, which is going to weigh a little bit more because of the hand crank. So I think they did a great job of kind of mirroring and matching the models, even though one is metal, coming in at right around 22 pounds, and then the aluminum one on the right, again, identical birth dates. Both of them were born August 1st, same year, 1922. So Singer was always trying to be progressive in their thinking. They probably thought, okay, since the 99K came on the scene in 1911, with the idea that it would be a portable, lightweight version, a smaller version of the 66K, then why don't we make it even lighter? And that'll be better. More is better, right? So I don't know how successful they were. Obviously, the manufacturing group that they did in 1922 was only 4,500 that my machine falls in the class of. And they made 35,000 of Debbie's. So I don't know, maybe that says something. I'm thinking that maybe the metal version was a little bit more popular and people were still maybe, I don't know, maybe they were a little bit skeptical about aluminum. It's different. It's lighter weight. Maybe it's not made as well. Maybe it's cheaper. You know, who knows what their thoughts were. But I have to give kudos to Singer for at least trying and seeing how people would respond to it. You know what I mean? All right. So let me do this. Let me put on some more music. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my aluminum version of the 99K off the workbench. And we're going to focus strictly on Debbie's, which is the purpose of this premiere anyway, is to show you what it can do now that it's gone through my very, very detailed surgical process. Okay, so that first one was called Allegro. And this next one is going to be called Wander. Wander, like wander through the woods. Keep forgetting to lock that screen. All right. It does feel lighter, quite honestly. Yeah, it does. Quite a bit lighter. Well, 33% lighter anyway. 33% lighter than Debbie's. And I didn't do a full restore on Debbie's, obviously. What I did is I did some conditioning of the paint. I wicked a lot of that old varnishing and oil that was deep into the pores of the paint and just tried to return a little bit of that luster. And if you saw the Facebook shots, I think I was pretty doggone successful. Pretty doggone successful. I just can't send a machine out of the workshop if it's not standing tall and looking good. You know what I mean? I just can't. That's how I'm wired. All right, let's come a little bit closer on Debbie's so we can look at some of the work I did. There's the base stain, which I think it matches the new bentwood cover that I put with it beautifully. And then since this was originally set up as a 99K13, which was the knee control version of the 99K, it has that little hole on the front. And I left that because I thought it's kind of cool. Plus it's a conversation piece. And you can still see, even though I stained this inner piece compartment as well, inner piece compartment, that makes no sense. This inner compartment is, I also stained that. It makes that outline of where the foot controller was in there. because that's how they're set up. There's basically a little junction mechanism that depresses the button on the foot controller when you engage the knee controller, and then it's kind of mounted to the bottom of this little compartment. So, but you can still see the outline a little bit, and it's kind of a neat little conversation piece. And then this is one of the two hand cranks that Debbie Carver sent with the machine. I liked this one better, and I was able to adapt it to work with her machine beautifully. This is the other one that she sent as well, which is an aftermarket one, and it just didn't come across as classy. It's not a bad hand crank. I mean, it's totally functional, but from an aesthetic standpoint, the wood grain type look on this hand crank just tied into the base and the bentwood cover beautifully. So I had to go with that. You know what I mean? Again, a machine, the better it feels about itself, the better it's going to sew, and the better the owner feels about that machine as well. So I think it's a great treasure. I mean, it was a treasure before, but now it's even a better treasure from a standpoint of aesthetics and stuff. So a couple of things that had to be done to this. Obviously the paint, lots of adjustments, lots of deep cleaning, and then there also was a broken piece on it as well that had to be replaced. I'll show you the broken piece. Actually, I'll show you the broken piece and a complete piece, if I can find it. Yeah, there we go. Let me just take it out of this bag real quick. And I'll turn my screen around so I can see that as well. So I've talked about this before with other models, and also this model as well. With this bob and winding assembly, when you want to depress it, then you just push this down, it engages the hand wheel, and then it has a feature which I think is really cool. It's called a kickback spring in there that when you release it, it then pops back up again. Without that kickback spring, you can depress it, but in order to bring it back up, you would have to manually lift it up. So with that kickback spring, it pops back up automatically. Well, it wasn't popping when I got it, and it's because this spring right here in that assembly had been snapped off. This is one that's broken, and this is the same type that I replaced it with. You see the difference? Pretty significant. So that's not a lot, but that's a little bit of an extra cost with the parts and labor that I'll have to let the customer know about. But I knew that she would want to have it fully functional, so it is now. And then obviously adding the bentwood cover as well was another cost of the project, but I think it makes total sense. And with this style of hand crank, as you saw in the opening of this premiere, you can fold it in, and then you can put that bentwood cover on without having to take that hand crank on and off every single time you want to have portability. So this is just a perfect setup now for Debbie, so that if she wants to take it out to sewing classes or quilting classes or quilting retreats or quilting expos or quilting anything, she can do that and doesn't have to go through a process of carrying a screwdriver in her pocket. So she can, take on and take off, take on and take off that hand crank every single time she wants to leave her house. The other thing I had to do as well is that this machine was not secure to the base. It did not have a retaining clip that held it in the base. I'll show you what I mean. So I had to make one. And I think it turned out pretty doggone good. I'm really pleased with it. So this now secures the machine in the base, and then when you want to tilt it back to work on it or something, you just rotate that to the side, and you're able to service the bottom of the machine or whatever you want to do. But that was a definite must. It needed to be in there for sure, just because otherwise, as you were transporting this or something, the machine could get damaged. And the way I did this, again, good old Texas innovation or Wisconsin innovation, is I went into my little magic box. Let me come out in this shot a little bit. I went into my little magic box of doodads, and I've got several like this. And I took a bunch of these washers. Actually, it's not like that. That's a locking washer. I hope I didn't use them all. Maybe I did. I took a bunch of washers like this, and I put several layers of paint on them. And then I also took a real nice long wood screw, along with this other part that you can see, which is actually a clip for something totally different. And I married them all together after they were painted. And now we've got a machine that is safe and secure. And I did that not just to show off that, hey, look at me, I came up with a clever innovation. But I did that because I didn't have a regular clip that I normally would have used. And I'm trying to remember one of the machines I used recently where I had to add a clip to it. But when you don't have what you need, you come up with a great innovation. And that metal clip on the end, I made sure that those edges were nice and smooth. I took some high grit sandpaper so it's not going to damage Debbie's bed either when she rotates it back and forth. So there you go. That's some of the stuff that I did to get this machine ready for this premiere. Probably other things as well, but I'm not remembering exactly. So for practice, if you want to just look it up and verify that the information I've given you is spot on, there's Debbie Carver's serial number. And I'm sure you can read it very easily in the shop, but if you want to look down at your paper as you're writing and not look at the screen and look at the paper and look at the screen and look at the paper, it's Y as in Yankee, 705610. And if you want to look mine up as well, so you can see how it's bracketed out differently, even though it's in the same model year, exactly the same birth date of August 1st, 1922, you can look up mine as well, and you'll see in the right-hand column on ISMAX, it'll have the word aluminum next to it. And my serial number is Y723980. Y as in Yankee, 723980. So it's just good for practice to be familiar with how to look those up. And that way, if you sometimes will see folks visiting the Facebook page and they'll have a question about dating their machine. On a number of occasions before Hans, Bill, or myself had to hop in and help them out, a number of you have done that before to help out folks that are very new to the vintage space, which I think is absolutely fabulous because it shows the ultimate value of what I'm trying to build here, and that is, and I'm remiss, the classroom setting that I'm trying to build where all of us can share the role of sometimes being teachers, and all of us always share the role of being students. As I've said before, sometimes a teacher, always a student. That's the beginning of wisdom, in my opinion. So let me do this. What else did I want to show you guys? Anything else? Oh yeah, and you've seen this on the Facebook shots, but if you don't do Facebook, then you probably haven't seen it. But I also wanted to show you the impact that I brought to Debbie's machine. Not only, did I stain the base, and I put a beautiful bentwood cover and stained that to match as well, and also did a bunch of cleanup on the paint and added this little cool retainer thing and all that. But beyond that, the more importantly is I did a lot of mechanical work and a lot of adjustments on the machine. And the result is now that we have a machine that started sewing. Yeah, I probably should just leave it down here and zoom in on it. Otherwise, I'm going to be battling that silly camera. Let's do it like this. So it started sewing with this. This was actually under the presser foot when I unpackaged it and took it out of the box and everything. And you could see they were having some major challenges. Whoever did this stitch off, someone maybe at Goodwill, I don't know, maybe Debbie did it. I have no idea. But whoever did it, they really did a great service in highlighting just how much this machine was struggling. And it wasn't strictly a tension issue, it was also a number of adjustments that had to be made on the machine as well, to include the height and the position of the feed dogs. Feed dogs can play as important of a role in the ultimate quality of that stitch, the integrity of the stitch, and just the presentation of the stitch as the tensioning does. The tensioning and the feed dogs work in concert in moving that material evenly over the feed dogs, underneath the presser foot. And obviously another factor that ties in as well is the presser foot pressure. Again, the simple rule is the thicker the material, the more pressure you're going to need. And the heavier grade the material, the more pressure you're going to need. Otherwise, you might have the tension just perfect. You might have a brand new needle in there. And that tension control, like, I'm just going to break away from that for a second. That tension control, has been totally disassembled and cleaned, just like you see I've done to Debbie's. But still you're having trouble with the quality of the stitch, like down here. And the culprit may be everything else is working great, but that presser foot pressure may be incorrect. Now, it may be too little, it may be too much. If you're working with silks and satins and you've got that presser foot pressure cranked way up, then you might also experience problems with the feed of that material and ultimately the quality of the stitch as well. So you've got to match the presser foot pressure, which is controlled by this little doodad up here. You've got to adjust that according to the material you have. There's Great Britain. Hey! So just keep that in mind as you're dealing with different things with your machine or your machines. There's a lot of things that, oh, I didn't even show you my stitches. Duh. So this is what, after I went through my process, I did several runs, and this is what I was getting. A little bit of a difference, huh? From this to that. Or if I flip it, from this, I'll flip mine as well. From this to this. That's the lock stitch right there. And there were several improvements done in these rows too. I had to keep making adjustments. Once I was confident that the feed dogs were set properly, positioned properly, that the presser foot pressure was right, I had a fresh needle in there. I obviously rewound the thread for the bobbin as well. Then I was confident that we had a working solution and that it was just a matter then of adjusting the tension. And someone had cranked the tension on the Raceway bobbin assembly way up there. I mean, it was through the roof. It was through the roof. And speaking of bobbin, I'll just mention it as you're looking at these stitches. I'll actually come on the shot a little bit. On the 99K, if you're looking at, again, it's got a drop-in bobbin. I'll just buzz over there real quick. You just slide this little plate open, and it's got a drop-in bobbin. Plus, it's got this little kick out right here as well, where you can push this little button right here, and it raises that bobbin up so you can more easily remove it if you're going to change out thread colors, thread types, or if you want another bobbin and you have to put another bobbin in. So it's this is a fabulous design, and this is the same as the big brother of this 99, the 66K, or the 66 for that matter. So that's a fabulous feature. But what I was going to say as you're looking at that is when you put that bobbin in, make sure that the thread is over the top of the bobbin when you drop it in, which means that as that's turning, it's going to be turning counterclockwise. And when you're setting the needle, that's also equally critical. Make sure that you have the flat side of the needle towards the pillar In other words, to the right, have the flat side of the needle to the right. You can actually see it there in that shot. That's kind of cool. So the flat side of the needle goes to the right, which is towards the pillar. And then you're going to be threading this machine from left to right through the eye of the needle. And you can see that as well, I think, in the shot if I come down just a little bit. Yep. So that just gives you some of the basics. And that's true of the 99, that's true of the 99K, that's true of the 99K13. It's going to fit with all of them, the information I just gave you. And threading this machine is also real simple. I'm going to do something different because I usually try to zoom and get the camera just right on the screen and everything. But I'm going to show you actually in the manual. So you can look at it in the manual, which I don't know if Debbie has a manual for this or not. If she doesn't, prior to me shipping, she can let me know, and I'll try to send a manual with the machine so she doesn't have to get one off of eBay or search one out or something like that. But I'll show you right inside of the book here. So you can see on the right side right there in position 1, we're basically coming off the spool through that thread guide right there. We're coming straight down through the tension discs, and then we're coming around, widen the shot a little bit. We're coming around, we're going over that take-up spring, that spring right there. Now we're coming underneath that little arm, that little thread guide, and we're coming straight up to the take-up arm, through there from right to left, and then we're coming across the faceplate. There's another thread guide right there on number 6. And we're coming straight down, and there's another thread guide right there in number 7. And then we're going to come down to the needle, and we're going to thread that needle from left to right, just as I already said. So I'll come on the shot a little bit. You can look at it in the totality, see if that's helpful. That's not helpful if I come out that far, is it? I'll just kind of freeze it there for a second. If you got a big screen TV or something you watch the premiere on, you'll be able to see that real clearly. And, you know, I've got enough experience. I know Hans does and Bill does as well. Hans is our real, quite honestly, our newest kid on the block as far as vintage sewing machines. As some of you know, he's only been involved with vintage for a little bit over a year. He's very new, but he's a quick learner, and he's very passionate about it. So he picks up on things, and again, when people send us all kinds of messages about all areas, he jumps in along with Bill and helps to answer a lot of those questions. So, you know, he's a teacher and a student just like I am, and Bill's no different as well. So, but let me move this book out of the way. Let me move these sew-offs that we've already done out of the way, which are the past, and let's get into the present and see what this machine will do now that it's gone through my process. And it's sewing like a champ. It's sewing beautifully. I'll wipe this bed off again. I use a special conditioning sealer on the paint, and it sometimes will wick up a little bit and almost give it kind of a slick look, but it's to protect the work that I've done on the bed so that varnishing and stuff doesn't start up all over again right away, which it has a tendency to do. It's kind of like rusty cars in Wisconsin. You get rid of that rust and that doggone rust comes back again. What's that about? So, those of you who live in Florida, Arizona, or some of the other dry spots, I don't want to hear about it. Down in the south, even down in the south, kind of in the neck of the woods where Debbie Carver's from, Knoxville, Tennessee, they get snow a little bit, but nothing like Wisconsin. So I don't want to hear about, well, we don't have that problem with rust. My cars, you know, are from the 1950s, and they're rust-free, and they sit outside, and we don't even wash them. I don't want to hear about it. Nobody wants to hear about that. The other thing you'll notice, along with just how beautiful Debbie's chrome is on there now, I did a little bit of work on that as well, and her presser foot, etc. Presser foot bar and all that good stuff. It's all looking real good. You'll notice as well that this 99K has some fabulous clearance underneath the presser foot. And there is an adjustment on this machine as well, where if you want to You know, again, I don't recommend it because the factory sets it so that it's in an optimal way and it's aligned properly with the feed dogs and all that. But there are some of us that sometimes will tweak things a little bit. If someone says, I just need a little bit more clearance, there is a way to do that inside of the faceplate area to adjust where that presser foot bar is so that you can inch a little bit more clearance out of that machine. But I did set it to factory specs because I wanted it to be at the original everything. But you can do that. I'll just mention that. I'm not trying to tempt any of you if you have a 99K or a 99 to go in the faceplate and start jimmying around with things. Although that could be good for my business because then you'll mess something up and you'll go, I don't know what to do. Okay, send me the machine. So I'm not trying to entrap you. I'm just trying to say that there is that option. But even without making that option a reality, look at the clearance. For such a little mighty mite, it really is super impressive. Super impressive. And I think you'll be impressed as well with how quiet this hand crank operates. Again, one of my good friends out in the Carolinas, Sharon, purchased a number of machines from me. And, you know, a shout out to Sharon out there in the Carolinas. One of the challenges that she had, and I've shared this before, but I'll share it again. She and her husband love to spend time together in the evening. But she wanted to sew, and he wanted to watch TV. And they don't use Bluetooth headsets or any of that fancy stuff. They just watch TV the old-fashioned way. And when she was in there with her regular sewing machine, it created a little bit of a tension, a little bit of a conflict where he was trying to watch a program. She was sewing away without realizing it, and she was upsetting him. So she contacted me, and I sold her a Class 66, the bigger version of this, with a hand crank so that she could sew in the living room while her husband was watching TV, and they had harmony. So I joked around. I said, just by selling you another machine, a hand crank, I saved your marriage. But at any rate, that's another great benefit of hand cranks is they do tend to be, if they're optimized, they do tend to be quite a bit more quiet. They're more stealthy when it comes to sewing with them. All right, let me put on a little bit of music so you don't have to listen just to my voice. So we just played Wander. Now we're going to, this is a weird title. Now I'm going to put on something called Medieval Astronomy. Astrology, I'm sorry, not astronomy. Medieval Astrology. And I'm going to turn the volume way down, but just give us a little bit of background noise. Ooh, this one sounds kind of medieval-ish, doesn't it? All right. And don't tell me to turn my sewing light on, because I don't have one. I had one on the other machine, which I don't know if you noticed it in the Facebook shots or not, but my aluminum version of the 99K has the coolest pull cord type light system on it. I thought it was really neat. Maybe I'm entertained easily. Turn this down even further. It's getting kind of louder. Okay, why don't we start with some of my genuine elk hide, and we'll put this to the test. Just had to wipe that plate off it. I couldn't tell if I got a little bit of stain on it or if that was just a nasty old fingerprint. My hands aren't that dirty either. I haven't been working on any machines yet, so they're still pretty clean. Okay, so presser foot pressure is down. I do have it set for heavier grade materials, so I think we're all set. I'm going to look over my shoulder. Yep, we look good to go. And again, if you're new to this channel and you're not familiar with this is genuine elk hide. It's chemically processed. It's probably about 4 ounces of leather, and it basically has the thickness of a standard size belt. So not an easy task at all, but I think you're going to be amazed at how easily this hand crank gets the job done. As a matter of fact, what I could do, and I'll do it, is I'm going to widen the shot so you can watch me crank this off. At least I don't have to do it with my finger, which is a good thing. Kind of like I did recently on that other machine that was premiered. And then what I'll do is when I get done sewing that stitch line, I'll go ahead and zoom back in so you can look at the stitches. All right, here we go, a single layer of genuine elk hide. And we'll see how Debbie Carver's machine does with this. And on these 99s, it doesn't hurt when you first launch, maybe just to hold those threads in the rear a little bit when you start to crank, and then you can let go of them, obviously. But the 99 does tend to pull in those threads quite a bit. All right, here we go. That is pretty quiet, don't you think? You can hear just a little bit of a hum, but it's not a loud hum. It's not an obnoxious type hum. It's just a hum. It almost is kind of soothing. I mean, it's soothing to me anyway. It may be irritating to you, but it's soothing to me. Let me clip these, and we'll go ahead and zoom in on these a little bit so you can look at them closer up. You can see those kind of popping through. Set this over by the presser foot. I think we got a pretty good alignment. And we'll look at that top stitch first, and then we'll look at that lock stitch. Just look at that texture of that elk hide. And those are beautiful stitches, by the way. Spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch is just absolutely spot on. Just gorgeous stitching. That's exactly what we want to be seeing. Exactly what we want to be seeing. Let me zoom out on this a little bit. You can look at the totality of the stitching, as I love to say. Then I'm going to flip this around, and you can take a look at the lock stitch. Again, this elk hide has a little bit of a nap to it, so we may have to kind of strain our eyes a little bit to see that lock stitch popping through. But it is absolutely exactly as it should be. There you can see the beginning of it very clearly. And then intermittently you can see those stitches popping through the nap, saying, hello, hey, here I am. And again, look at from the edge there, or the top, the thickness of the leather that we just cranked off. And as you could see, because of the camera shot I had, I mean, there was no strain. There was no, oh my gosh, let's get this punched through and let's see if we can make it. It was just absolutely a breeze. And that is one of the beauties of a hand crank, is if the hand crank is optimized properly, and you've got it mounted correctly and all that, you've just got it set up the way it should be, you're going to be able to crank things off with that hand crank by hand. That was kind of redundant, wasn't it? Hand crank by hand. It's like hand crank by foot. You're going to be able to do that with even more ease than a lot of electrified machines. This machine, I don't doubt that it could probably, even if I optimize my aluminum version of the 99K, this machine will probably outperform it, just because you've got that hand crank mounted directly to that main shaft, and there's no loss of energy at all. There's no loss of energy through a belt, through pulleys that might be either over lubricated or under lubricated or whatever it is. You just got, it's almost like the original version of positive traction when you attach a hand crank directly to the balance wheel like that. So hand cranks are pretty doggone amazing sometimes in what they can do if they're running at the top of their game. Okay, so let me lock this in place again, and we're going to keep on marching forward. And I think I'm probably going to continue with leather for a little bit, just to give this 99K a chance to kind of show its stuff. So I'm going to launch now into some protected full grain leather. And I had to really choose the material colors carefully with my almost a powder blue thread. Otherwise, some of these stitches would be virtually impossible for you to see. All right. So again, when you're launching initially with a hand crank, it may not be a bad idea. Just give a little hold on those threads in the rear. And then once you're cranking away, just let them go. All right, so here goes a single layer of protected full grain leather, probably about 3 to 4 ounces. And we'll see how Debbie Carver's machine does with this. All right, you ready? Okay, here we go. Not bad speed, huh? I mean, I'm not racing to the finish or anything, but all right, let me give these a clip and we'll zoom in on these as well so you can take a look at these. And if you're not familiar with protected full grain leather, as the name would suggest, it is the thick of thick. It is some tough leather to get through, even though Debbie's machine just made it look like that was easy. It is some real tough leather. And even going through a single layer of it is no small accomplishment when it comes to the ease in which we just accomplished that task. I mean, there was just no effort. If you were here turning that hand crank, you'd be like, I can't believe how easy that thing turns. And a big part of that is how I've set the machine up, and obviously my servicing of the machine as well had a huge difference. So there you can see the edge is not quite as thick as the elk hide, but that is still thick leather, folks. It is. And look at those stitches that we just laid down. It just doesn't get any better than that. It really doesn't, folks. Those are perfect stitches. I'm just going to say it. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch is just absolutely spot on. If we turn it over, after we look at the totality of the stitches, if I stop moving the camera, we'll look at that lock stitch on here. And this stuff is pretty nappy as well, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to see that lock stitch, but I'm going to need those clips to hold it as well, I think, in place. But that lock stitch is also spot on as well. I forget to angle it sometimes because of the angle that I'm shooting the camera with. Just positioning it a little bit to the left or right can make a big difference. Look at that nap. That is intense. But that lock stitch is just absolutely spot on. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch is exactly as we want to see it. Exactly as we want to see it. And again, when it comes to sewing any leather, the fact that I do not use, generally don't use, apart from the suggestion of my friend from New York, I generally never use leather needles because I really want to put that machine through the test of seeing, is it able to deliver on a material that's as difficult as that to get through and lay down, and I forgot to lock the camera again, and lay down a stitch that is absolutely brag-worthy like that. Isn't that gorgeous? Just look at those. Especially with that powder blue thread, they just, wow, wow. So I'm going to throw that to the back along with the elk hide as a definite pass. And now I'm going to go from there to it's a white colored, I'll just call it kind of an off-white colored Italian leather. I like sewing a variety of different leathers. So I'm going to get that into position. And we're going to crank off on a single layer of this Italian leather now, once I adjust my camera shot a little bit. And you can see right away from the side that this is going to be a little bit thicker than that protected full grain leather that we just sewed, which again was around 3 or 4 ounces. This is probably a little bit more towards the 4 to 5 ounces, this Italian leather. So I'm going to put on a little bit more classical style music, which is how I search this music out. And again, we just listened to medieval astrology. Now we're going to listen to number 1 A minor waltz, which we've heard before. All right, camera shot's good. get over and crank some of this off. So I'm going to hold those threads in the back while we're launching, and then we'll start cranking down this Italian leather. Here we go. I cut this a little bit longer, so we're going to get a good long run with this. And you probably already noticed, but I'm kind of pulling this to the rear while I'm rocking the balance wheel a little bit. Kind of pulling it to the rear, just so it feeds out a little bit better after that stitch line is done. This white stuff this white leather, this Italian leather, I don't like to use it because it leaves all kinds of little leather droppings all over the place. It's like a puppy that's not potty trained. So, I don't know. You know how I am about wiping beds off and stuff. It's like, what did you do? What did you do to Debbie's machine? Yuck, bad dog, bad dog. All right, let's take a look at this. I'll try to bring it out a little bit. Also trying to bend it a little bit because it's wanting to twist and turn. Let's do that. That one's going to be a little bit of a challenge. I'll bring it out a little bit further. I might have to actually hold that by hand. We'll see. Well, you'll just have to imagine with that bend that those stitches are just perfect. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, just absolutely spot on. Here we're going to be turning again where I'm going to have hard press to kind of go all the way over to the edge. That wasn't as bad as I thought. But that stitch quality is just absolutely spot on. Beautiful stitching. Come out a little bit, look at the totality of it. I'll turn it around so we can look at the lock stitch. This is going to have a much flatter nap, so it's going to be a little bit easier for us to see it. Although blue thread is a little bit of a challenge sometimes when it comes to seeing that stitch definition, just because of the coloring. See how it's kind of curly on the right side over there? It's just... leather is tough stuff to work with. It really is, even just for basic stitch offs. So here's our lock stitch. I'm going to kind of go down as slow as I can. Kind of hard to see it on this material, but the stitch quality, the stitch formation, the integrity of the stitch is just absolutely spot on. I'm actually going to do this. Let me do this. It should be right about towards the presser foot, I believe. Let me see if I can pull that back for you. Especially with no lighting on the bed, it's just a little bit harder to see this Italian leather in relation to that stitch quality. So I'm going to look over my shoulder as best as I'm able. Where am I? Kind of pull it back. Almost makes you feel dizzy when you're looking over your shoulder like this. But that lock stitch is just absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. So I'm going to give this Italian leather a pass as well for getting the job done and just doing a fabulous job. And now I'd like to one-up it a little bit. And what I'm going to do, let's see, maybe I'll one-up it with my protected full grain, because I like the look of that, but that's going to be hard if I do it like that, unless I do it back to back. I could do it back to back. Why don't I do that? I'm going to do this Italian leather. I'm going to go up to 2 layers now, and I'm going to do it back to back with another stitch line, and I'll actually change the stitch length as well, just to make it evident which stitch line we've done. So I'm going to slide that into position on the left side. I'm going to drop that presser foot down. And again, if you're not familiar with this style of machine, with the stitch length controller being basically a knob that you turn on the front, there you can see those stitches beautifully. Look at that. See, that's all about angle sometimes. Isn't that goofy? How goofy is that? But this stitch length controller right there, that little shiny knob that you see, if you want the longest stitch possible on a machine that has this setup, then you want to crank that all the way in like I have it right now. If you want to shorten that stitch, make it shorter, which again, if you're doing leather, if you're doing 2 layers of leather, that is going to raise the stakes even higher. So I'm not going to go crazy with it, because this machine, if you crank that all the way out, turn it left, you're going to be sewing right around 25 to 30 stitches per inch. I'm not that adventurous, but I'm going to give it a couple of turns. There's 1 turn, 2 turns. We'll stop right around 3 turns. And if you ever get one of these machines and that sucker is just so tight that you just don't know how to, is it really supposed to turn? A combination of heat and lubricant is going to loosen it up for you. Never try putting vice grips or anything like that on it, because this material right here is cast. And if you put a lot of pressure from end to end, trying to turn it that way, you're very likely to crack it. So try not to do that. Just apply a lot of heat, and you should be good to go and be able to loosen that up. And then once you get it all the way out, go ahead and make sure all those threads are nice and clean, and then put a fresh coat of machine oil on the threads, just as I've shown you in other videos and stuff, other premieres. Okay, so coming out on the shot here, I'm going to come out on the shot, and maybe I'm biting off more than I should, more than I should chew. I mean, but I'm going to give this a go. 2 layers of this Italian. Had to double check which one do we have. Yeah, 2 layers of this Italian leather, and I'm again shortening up that stitch a little bit, which is going to make it even more of a challenge for this 99K that belongs to Debbie Carver. So keep your fingers and toes crossed. Hopefully I didn't, overextend what this machine is capable of doing. I don't think I did, because again, I went through a lot of preparation in getting this machine optimized and getting it ready. So we're going to give it our best try. So again, grab those threads in the back, especially trying something like this. I tried that stain all night, and it's just a little bit tacky. So, but at any rate, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get us going, get that take-up arm all the way up, get those threads ready. All right, again, keep your fingers and toes crossed. Here we go. 2 layers of Italian leather, and we're sewing a stitch that probably is going to be right around 10 to 12 stitches per inch. All right, here we go. Boy, I'll tell you one thing, when I launched into that, you could feel what we were trying to do to this machine, and it's not very nice. And again, I'm not using a leather needle, so we'll see what we get. We'll see what we get. That is impressive. That is impressive. See, that's the advantage of sitting at this workbench, is I can see things before you all see them. And I'm already excited about what Debbie's machine just did with a task as difficult as this, other than that nasty leather droppings that this particular type of leather does. It just very impressive, very impressive. Again, a hand crank can do some pretty amazing things. So I'm going to clip these threads, and then we'll take a look at these 2 rows that this machine just sewed. And you see how I kind of flipped I flipped the leather back to back so that we can see those stitches a little bit easier. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to put it like this. I've got to clip that thread one more time. Clip that thread one more time. And I had not tested this before coming on camera. So I wasn't nervous because I know how much time and effort I put into the machines, but at the same time I was like, well, I don't know, maybe I went kind of crazy on this, and maybe it's too much, but definitely not too much for this 99K that's been prepared in the workshop. Very impressive. Let me zoom in on that. Oh, I see what I did. Yeah, that's a little bit longer row. I was looking at that, I thought, do I have it facing the wrong way? So the bottom row is our first stitch line. The top row is our second stitch line. What do you think? Look at that from the side. Let me let go of the camera for a second because it jiggles a little bit. Sorry. Look at that from the side. We're talking about 8 to 10 ounces of Italian leather there. And we sewed it back to back, which even makes it a little bit more difficult because of the way the needle has to pierce through those layers. And it laid down a stitch that's about 10 to 12 stitches per inch and delivered perfection. The stitch spacing, the stitch integrity, the stitch presentation, both of these rows for that matter. The bottom row, which is at the largest stitch length setting, and the top row, which again is around 10 to 12 stitches per inch. It just doesn't get much better than that, folks. It just doesn't. It's absolutely spot on from start to finish. I got to go by one more time just to show you. And again, when I launched into that sew-off, I could feel, there's the totality of stitching. When I launched into that stitch-off, I could feel the fact that I was going through 2 layers of leather when that crank first started to go into motion. But it wasn't like, oh my gosh, whoops, I just bumped it with, I was wiping off the bed again. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to turn this off, you know, crank it off. It cranked just fine. But initially you could just feel as that needle was going through that leather, again, being a non-leather needle, you could just feel right away the enormity of that task. And here, obviously, we're only going to have stitches in one row because this is when we went through our second layer with that tiny little stitch setting. And you can see our lock stitch just as well. Absolutely spot on. And that again is about 10 to 12 stitches per inch, folks. Through 2 layers of Italian leather. Anyone else impressed yet? I even get impressed sometimes with how well the machines will do after I'm done with my process. You know, going through leather like that? Are you kidding? Try that on a Walmart machine. No offense to Walmart. I have a lot of friends that work at Walmart. And I do shopping there regularly. Even buy some sewing supplies there as well. But I'll tell you one thing. I would love to invite Walmart to give me any of their machines off the shelf and try doing this same task. And they better give me more than one machine, because I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to be going through machines like butter as I'm breaking them and cracking plastic gears and everything else. And for Debbie's machine, let me just say this. You could do sewing like this through Italian leather, through protected full grain leather, through genuine cowhide, whatever you want to sew. You can sew like this all day long, again and again and again and again and again and again, as long as you maintain the machine with basic maintenance, proper lubrication, cleaning, etc. It's not a one-off. You can use a 99K hand crank like Debby Carver's and sew like this all day long. You could have this in a leather shop and be doing leather like this on a regular basis, on a continuous basis, and it's not going to be a problem. So 2 layers looking for the side I can match. I didn't do a very good job of matching it up. But 2 layers of Italian leather, an absolute pass for Debbie's 99K from what year? 1922, right? Did anyone do the math out of curiosity as to how old this machine is, if it was born in 1922? I didn't. I'm actually looking it up on my phone right now, and if you can give me the answer before I tell it, then you might win something special. You never know. So this is 2020 minus 1922. We're looking at a machine that is only 2 years short of being able to have a centennial birthday. We're talking about a machine that is, let me lock this in place before, oh, I did it anyway. We're talking about a machine that is, my camera comes back up. Where am I? Oh wait, I'm way too close, that's not going to work. Finally, and now my phone went dark again, what a hoot. 98 years old. Would you guess that, looking at that machine right now? I mean, it wasn't a bad looking machine at all when it came to the workshop, but after I've done a little bit more work, we did a nice staining of that base to really make that base pop more. Added that beautiful hand crank that Debbie sent with the machine. Cleaned up the paint. Shined up and cleaned up all the chrome. That's a beautiful machine now, isn't it? And I'm whistling at a machine that's just 2 years short of being able to celebrate its 100th birthday. 100th birthday. That's pretty doggone cool. That's pretty doggone cool. All right, let me zoom back in on the needle. And let's do a couple more sew-offs. Although I think Debbie's machine has already proved what it's capable of doing after going through 2 layers of Italian leather, going through elk hide, going through protected full grain leather. I'll tell you one thing, that would be enough to satisfy. Oh, and also elk hide. Did I mention elk hide already? If I didn't, I just did. But I'll tell you one thing, a lot of people would be satisfied just with that. But we're going to push it a little bit further. We'll see what else we can get. So that was, what was that? Number 1A minor waltz, I think, that we just did. There's got to be more songs than that. They changed the layout of this screen, and it's really irritating when YouTube will decide to change the format that creators need to work in, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, where do I find what I'm looking for? I don't know why they do that, but all of you should call YouTube right now. I think they're out in California, aren't they? Give them a call and ask them, why are you messing around with Scott's control panel that he uses for doing the premieres and that? Why are you doing that to him? Let me know how that goes. And if you videotape it and send me a copy of the videotape of calling YouTube and asking them why they're messing with the control panel for creators and it's causing Scott strife, I'll send you something special, guaranteed. So we're going to do Familiar Things now, which is another classical piece according to my YouTube friends. This one sounds kind of jazzy. Okay. We've got the camera all set up. I'm going to do just a quick wipe off of Debbie Carver's bed. Because that last Italian leather just, I mean, like I said, it's like a puppy that's not house trained when it comes to what it does to the bed of a machine. Ugh. Okay. Now we're going to do some good old denim, but this is unique denim. Let me show you what I mean. If I look over my shoulder here, get it lined up with the screen. This is like a stretchy denim. See that? So you already know that this is going to play havoc on stitch quality, stitch formation, as it's trying to feed over the feed dogs and underneath the presser foot. So I'm going to go with probably, just to give it more of a challenge, I'm going to go with probably 4 layers of this. We're going to go down and around. So I'm going to fold it over once. You can see now we've got 4 layers of this stretchy version of heavy grade denim. And we'll see how Debbie's machine does with this task. And again, I'm planning on going down and around, and I'm going to adjust our stitch length back to the longer stitch, and we'll see how this machine does. And I've done a lot of sewing on this needle, so I'm hoping that we have a good outcome, but I've really been working this needle. Of course, it's a Schmetz needle, as you would suspect, so we should be okay. All right, so I'm going to get that take-up arm all the way up. All right, so here we go, 4 layers, I think I said 4 layers, of stretchy, heavy grade denim. Here we go. I just realized as well this is going to be a little bit hard to see. This is going to be really hard to see because of the color of the thread in relation to the denim. As a matter of fact, hold on a second. Yeah, that's going to be crazy. I'm going to fold this denim inside out. Give me just a second here. Lay our thread tails down there. I'm going to pull this apart, which is stretchy stuff is going to make it a little bit more of a challenge. At least I did a longer stitch. If I'd done a shorter stitch, I'd probably be ripping this stuff up pretty bad. It's kind of a short tune, wasn't it? Yeah, that makes more sense. Let me turn this inside out. I probably even thought about that before the premiere, and then I ended up not doing it. You get into like an auto mode. So we'll turn this inside out so we're able to see these stitches hopefully a little bit better. So there's our 2 layers inside out. I'm going to fold this over, get us up to 4 layers, and hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier for us to see those stitches with the thread matching the material so closely. Okay, so we're going to go down and around, and again we've got 4 layers of stretchy heavy grade denim. Here we go. One more. There we go. Okay, and down to the finish, and I'm not going to close the box, so here we go. Yeah, that is a very, very smooth running 99K now. Very, very happy machine. Machines generate endorphins like human beings do when they, do like exercising and sporting events and all that kind of stuff, where you just get this like natural high, and you're just loving life. What you're doing just feels so good, and blah blah blah. After you have a good run or you do a workout or something like that. If machines have that same capability, then Debby Carver's 99K is definitely feeling endorphins kicking in right now with what I'm seeing on this stitch off. Beautiful, beautiful quality. I'm going to set it up vertically like this. See if we can see, hopefully, the stitches that way. I think I have it angled right too. So unless I somehow messed up, this should be our top stitch. Here you can actually see some of the stitching. The other way it would have been like impossible. It would have been literally impossible. So I'm going to go kind of down to the right and then back up again. So here's our row right here on the left. And if you can't see it on your screen, however you're viewing this premiere, those are spot-on stitches. The formation, the integrity of the stitch, the presentation of the stitch is just spot on. Beautiful stitching. There you can really see it as the light hits it in a certain way. I'm going to go over this other row, come back up. Doing my best to keep it steady, folks. It's not as easy as you would think, especially when you're going up. And then finally over to the side. Equally gorgeous. I'll come out, you can look at the, what? Totality of the stitching. And I'll flip this around and we'll look at the other side, which should be our lock stitch. It should be the right angle, I think. So this should be our lock stitch now. Again, we went through 4 layers of this stretchy, heavy grade denim. Absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful lock stitch as well. Here you can really see it across the top. Absolutely spot on. Then we're going to follow down the bottom right side to the bottom right side. And those stitches are equally gorgeous as well. So I'm going to give this a definite pass, these 4 layers of this stretchy heavy grade denim. A definite pass. Actually a slam dunk for this machine. And again, look at it from the side. And I don't have my screen locked. If I try to move it, it'll be like, oh, it's all over the place. So look at the thickness again of what we just went through. 4 layers, and not just a standard type heavy grade denim, but a stretchy heavy grade denim on top of it. And this 99K did not miss a beat from 1922. Again, 98 years old, and it sews just like a champ. I had a little bit of part in that, but I have to give some credit to the original designers of the machine too. They came up with a fabulous version to answer that need and demand for portability, and yet being able to sew at a level that its big brother would be sewing at, the 66K, and just laying down absolutely drop-dead gorgeous stitches. All right, I'm going to get a little drink of water. You can do the same, and I'm going to put on another musical piece for us to listen to while I'm drinking water, so you don't have to listen to me guzzle, guzzle, guzzle. So we just heard familiar things. Now we're going to listen to Dance of the Mammoths, which we've heard before. Well, I don't have a lot more things to challenge this 99K with. Although I did, because of the thread color, I couldn't use my you know, that new canvas that I've been using, the blue canvas. I thought I better not try that with blue thread. So I did cut a piece of my U.S. Army grade canvas, which I'm almost out of, but I thought, you know, I need to do canvas. I want to do canvas. So that's what we're going to do next, I think, is some U.S. Army grade canvas. So just to recap what we've sewed so far, we've done 4 layers of stretchy heavy grade denim, slam dunk, 2 layers of Italian leather, again about 8 to 10 ounces of leather, slam dunk. We did protected full grain leather, slam dunk, and we did a piece of my genuine elk hide, slam dunk. Any of you basketball fans are probably loving me saying slam dunk that many times in such a short period of time. All right. So that was Dance of the Mammoths. I didn't see any mammoths dancing, but maybe you did. If you did, you might want to go seek a doctor's help soon. Okay, so I've got 2 layers right here of my standard U.S. Army grade canvas. I'm going to go ahead and fold it over once. And I think that's about as far as I'm going to be able to go. I don't think I'm going to be able to realistically fold it again. I don't know if I'm going to take on that. Again, my goal is not to show, and the way I cut this, I kind of set myself up for failure in trying to sew it like that. It's not going to work real well. So I'm going to stick with my, how many layers do I have right now? I lost count. 4 layers? 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. I'm going to do 4 layers of this U.S. Army grade canvas. Again, the goal is not to show the max of what this 99K can do. It's to give it a number of challenges with a variety of different materials, and then the focus on how good is that stitch looking. So the thing I will do to raise the stakes on this a little bit higher is I will adjust that stitch length a little bit so that we're generating even a smaller stitch going through material like this. So I've got it set right now on the max as far as length. I'm going to go ahead and crank it probably about 4 or 5 times to the left this time to really bring that stitch length down quite a bit. So we're going to be probably close to 15, right around 15 stitches per inch, I would estimate. It's only an estimate, folks. Don't hold me to it and be trying to measure it on the screen or something like that, please. That's as bad as my people that want me to close boxes. So don't do that. Okay. So I'm going to hold my thread tails just for a little bit as I'm launching into this. And again, we're going to be sewing somewhere around 15 stitches per inch through 4 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. Here we go. I know, it just makes it so easy. It makes it look so doggone easy, it's almost ridiculous, isn't it? Alright, here we go to the finish line through our 4 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. Alright, and I will close the box for my box closing lovers. Doing that last little bit by hand just because when you're trying to go super slow with a hand crank, it can be a little bit of a challenge if you're trying to finish off a line of stitching. So, oh, and I left the box open just a little bit. That'll really irritate those folks. What a hoot. You'll see that I didn't quite go. I thought I went all the way to the end, but I didn't. That's funny. That's just a little bit funny. Alright, let's get those threads ready for the next stitch off. If I decide to stitch anything else off. I mean, it's kind of like pointless at this point, but because this 99K has just done a fabulous job with every single thing we've thrown at it so far. So I'm going to put that like that vertically, and we'll take a look at these stitches and the box, which is almost closed but not quite closed all the way. Alright, and I think I'll put on, this is called Newsroom News. Newsroom News. It should be interesting. And it only goes for 1 minute and 35 seconds. Oh, I can totally see that now. Thank you for joining us for the 10 o'clock news tonight. Tonight we are at Scott's workshop in Oconto, Wisconsin, checking out the stitch quality of this 99K. That's 98 years old. 98 years old, getting ready to celebrate a birthday of centennial magnitude in just 2 years. We'll have to do a follow-up on this. All right, any of you that have a 99K that doesn't sew like this, especially when you're talking about the sew-offs that I've already done, do not hate Debbie Carver's machine. Don't do it. Hate is a bad thing. Hate is a bad thing. The totality of the stitches. I'm going to start getting notes about saying that too much. Scott, can you please not say totality anymore, please? All right, let's take a look at that lock stitch. That was kind of a fun song, wasn't it? I felt newsy while it was playing. I don't know about you. So here's our lock stitch coming through 4 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. And you'll notice how that lock stitch creates a little tuft next to it. That's just part of the composition of the canvas, the way the Army folks make it. That is absolutely a gorgeous lock stitch as well. The spacing, the formation, just the overall appearance of that stitch is just absolutely as it should be. Now you can actually see the green in between there from the tufting. What a hoot. And our open box. It's nearly closed, but it's not. So, any rate, this is a no-brainer as well. The 4 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas, absolutely a pass. I'm going to throw that to the rear as well. I don't think I have much else left to challenge this machine with. I really don't. I've got some of this leather suede stuff. I've got some velvet. I think velvet will be almost impossible to see. I think it'll be virtually impossible to see. I could do a single layer of it, and then at least we can see the lock stitch quality through the material. And I'm just going to buzz down once, which means I should probably cut this a little bit smaller. I don't want to waste this. Velvet is not cheap, as most of you probably know. It's also like that Italian leather where when you're sewing leather like that, the Italian leather, and you're sewing velvet like this, it just leaves little droppings all over the bed. It's really, really irritating. All right, so I'm going to put that down. But it's beautiful, isn't it? Isn't that a beautiful material? I just don't know what we'll be able to see, quite honestly. Let me zoom in a little bit more. I'm quite a ways out right now. Okay, so let's go down this and see how this 99K, which has done a lot of sewing already, we'll recap it in the end, but it's done a lot of sewing already, and we're going to push it through just one more sew off, going through this semi-slippery, beautiful emerald colored velvet. All right, are you ready? Okay, here we go. Tried to keep it as much centered as I could. Oh yeah, that's like impossible on the top. I'm gonna have to do some major. Yeah, if I pull it back, you can catch a glimpse of it, but otherwise, that top is. It's like you sewed and the material. Look at that. It's like you sewed and the material ate the stitch, literally. You see that? Where is the stitch? Didn't we just stitch? I thought we stitched. It's gone. It's magic material. It ate the thread. No, it didn't eat it, you silly guys. But it definitely looks like it did. It definitely looks like it ate it, for sure. Oh, and I'm seeing something interesting with this material, where it looks like, yeah, a couple of them are a little bit loosey-goosey. Like we would have to adjust that upper tension up just slightly. But let's look at the top stitch first before I go down that road. So I'm going to pull this back as best as I can. I don't know how much success I'm going to have. Where am I? Yep, there we are. I'm going to do the best I can to pull it back so you can at least catch a little glimpse of that top stitch. You're not catching much of a glimpse of it. It's like buried in that velvet. It's just like buried in that velvet. And the thing that I noticed, and this is a tension issue, and it's also probably also a feed issue because the material is a little bit slippery. Beautiful stitching on this end, right over here. Where am I? Beautiful stitching on this end. Then towards the end of the track, that material must have been slipping a little bit, and I got a little bit of a loosey-goosey thing going right where my thumbs are, right there. A little bit of a loosey-goosey thing, and that might also be, as well, that this needle is just getting tired. But all in all, beautiful stitching, what we can see of it anyway. Kind of catch it a little bit there if I pull it to the side on this velvet material as well. So I'm going to throw that back to the rear. But again, I would make a slight adjustment on presser foot pressure and also upper tension to really make sure that that lock stitch is better defined. And also probably at this stage consider, you know, if I was going to continue with projects and sewing, I would probably look at, I think it's time to replace that needle. Because we've run it through, well, you can take a look. Oh, let me widen that shot a little bit without falling over. This is what we've sewed so far, folks. Any question as to why that needle might be getting a little bit tired? With all that leather sewing, stretchy denim, canvas, velvet. That's probably about 3 inches thick, close to 3 inches thick. So it's no wonder that as flawlessly as Debbie's machine has done, after going through all that other sew-off material, it had a little bit of a hiccup on that last material, that slippery velvet stuff. So I'm not surprised in the least. And a fresh needle would solve that very quickly. All right, let me lock this in place and we'll do one last, kind of debating if I'm going to do one last stitch off or not. What else do I have? Oh, I've got some of this stuff. That's right. Okay, we're going to do this long row of, it's like a leather suede type material. I'm going to take us back to a full length stitch. And I'm not going to change the needle out. We're just going to try to run this last run. If we have a couple little minor hiccups, I won't be shocked just because of this material being what it is. And we're only going to be able to see probably the top stitch because we'll see what we can see as far as that lock stitch through this real fluffy material on the bottom, but we'll give it a go. All right, and I'm going to end with some sort of a fun song because all these other songs have been kind of melancholy. See if you can pick it up a little bit. Hovering Thoughts. Let's see what that one sounds like. Yeah, I like this. Hovering Thoughts. All right, our final sew-off on Debbie Carver's 1922 Singer 99K. And this is going to be a super long sew-off, super long. It's probably like about 12, 14 inches long. Here we go. Like I said, it's a long one, folks. The song might finish before we do. That was a marathon sew-off. Oh my gosh. What a hoot. Alright, I'm probably going to walk these through my fingers because there's no way I can lay this across. I don't think I can lay it across the bed. It would be pretty tough. We'll see. Maybe I can. I don't know. We'll see. It's all about flexibility, right? Adjust and adapt, adjust and adapt, adjust and adapt. Adapt. Alright, let's see what happens if we lay it like that. You know, if I pop it up in the middle a little bit with the clips, that might work. That might work. We'll see. You have to pop it up with something else, though, too. Maybe these other scissors on the end to kind of just raise that up a little bit. All right, this is this is the best I can do considering the length of the sew-off. Let me just move it this way a little bit further, and we might have a fighting chance, but I wouldn't bet the farm on it. Plus, this stuff is curling a little bit as well. Alright, I better go quick because I think it's going to move again. Let's see if we can see these stitches. This is going to be tough just because of the sheer length of this sew-off. It's crazy. So there's our starting point. Again, you can see we went through just a single thickness of this suede leather material, but it's thick stuff. It's very, very dense. And the stitching I'm seeing, I'm going to try to hold the camera as steady as I can. The stitching I'm seeing is just absolutely spot on, all the way down. We're still going. There's the end finally. I'll try to go back the other way again so you can look at it one more time. But those, the stitch spacing, the stitch formation, the integrity of the stitch, the presentation of the stitch just doesn't get any better than that. And you'll notice that we didn't make any changes to the machine. It's the same needle, it's the same thread. It's just a matter of some materials as a needle starts to tire, will give you a little bit of a hiccup like that velvet did. Other materials that are equally challenging, like this stuff, will not give you any challenge at all. It looks like it fell down, doesn't it? I think it did. But that is what I would call just a drop-dead gorgeous, spot-on type stitch row that we just did. And it was a huge stitch off. I mean, we just cranked and cranked and cranked and cranked and cranked and cranked. And Debbie's 99K did not miss a beat through this scaly, crazy alligator type material. So, and I'm not going to zoom out for the totality because I'd be on the other side of the room. It's that long of a sew-off. And what I'm going to try to do, actually, that'll probably be easier for the lock stitch. We do this. Where's our presser foot? What I'm going to try to do is pull the material back for the lock stitch because I think it's going to be, otherwise it's going to be virtually impossible to see it. I'll get all these clippers off of there. Aren't these pretty? I actually purchased a machine from an original owner recently, and her daughter included these with it. And I think they're selling these aftermarket right now, but I'm pretty sure based on how long the lady said that her mom had these, that these are an original. These would be fun to give away, wouldn't it? Although I don't know if I'd have to declare anything if I shipped them through the U.S. mail. I might. But they usually only ask you about stuff that blows up or hazardous chemicals and stuff. Those are just basically a small little pair of scissors. All right, so let's start over here. And these lock stitches are just equally gorgeous on this sew-off as well. Just absolutely spot on. And I won't say from start to finish because we won't be at the finish for a while. Aren't those gorgeous? I'm so pleased with how this 99K is doing now. A lot of these you can just barely, you can almost kind of see them without me pulling them back, quite honestly. We're almost there. Almost at the finish. Tickle on my nose. So I'm just going to go by it one more time, and I won't pull it back this time because they're pretty visible at this point. Where am I? Okay. So that's a definite pass as well with Debbie's machine. Here's our lock stitch, which, I mean, I could try pulling that back as well. It's going to be super tough through this fluffy material, but I'll give it a try. There you can see them popping through. I'm really having to pull that too to kind of get them to come out of that fluff. And those are just absolutely spot on. This thing's so long. Beautiful stitching. Oops. Absolutely, as it should be. So this leather suede nightmare, as far as trying to feed it and show it and everything, with the length of this, even folding it in half, it's pretty doggone long. But that's a definite pass as far as the quality of that stitching. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Both the top stitch and the lock stitch as well, which is really tough to see. But I'm going to throw that to the rear, and we're going to call that the end of the test for this little Mighty Mite from 1922. This Singer 99K has just really, hopefully, impressed all of you with what it's capable of doing. And again, I'll recap that real quick for you, just so you can really gain an appreciation for what this machine, just accomplished. Nothing small, that's for sure. I'll just change the camera angle just slightly, and we'll take a look at these sew-offs in totality. So you didn't think I was going to say that. Again. All right, we'll stop right about there, and then I'll change my camera angle after that. Just quickly seeing if there's another song I can throw on. Oh, this is one of my favorite. Ode to Joy. Ode to Joy. Here we go. All right. So if you want to look at all the stitch offs together, there you go. It's a stitch off sandwich, for goodness sakes. Debbie Carver, I'm going to send all these, obviously, with the machine as well, so you can hold them in your own hands and you can look at them. So here's our leather suede, a definite pass. I'm going to throw it to the side. Here's our velvet that gave our machine just a little bit of a challenge, but all in all, I think the machine did really well, even with this tricky, slippery material. Then we had our 4 layers of genuine U.S. Army grade canvas, and again, it knocked it out of the park, did a fabulous job. We have our genuine elk hide, absolutely a slam dunk for this 99K. Here's our not our Italian leather, our protected full grain leather, and absolutely a success on that as well. Here's our 2 layers of Italian leather, and absolutely a breeze. And we not only sewed it with a standard length stitch, but also a much shorter stitch. And Debbie Carver's 99K did not miss a beat. And then last but not least, our stretchy heavy grade denim. Remember that stuff? And again, we went through 4 layers of that, and this 99K just knocked it out of the park. Did a fabulous job. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of let us listen to the rest of this beautiful musical piece. I'll come off the tripod and just walk around the machine just a little bit so you can see Debbie's machine from different angles. And again, realize I didn't fully restore this machine. I just cleaned it up and polished it up a little bit and kind of gave it a nicer look. Which I'm doing right now too, after touching it and moving it and doing all the things I did. All right, here we go. Yeah, we did a little bit of work on the bed. I didn't touch up any of the paint, but... Is that the end of my song already? What the heck is that about? Okay, well, I'll move on to Bach cello. That was not 2 minutes and 46 seconds. There's no way. I'm going to play it one more time. This is unusual to see this. I did clean this up here, but this scratching on Debbie's machine, it was like this when it arrived. And normally you'll see it more over here, but they must have had their pin cushion near the spool of thread, because that's normally from pins that stuff gets scratched up like that. I can do this with one hand, but I'm going to try. No, I don't think I can. What I wanted to show you real quick is I just released this little pin right here, pull the handle out, and now you can tuck the handle in so that if I'm just going to put material underneath here so that I don't mess things up. We just see those things pulling. That's why you hold them. So all I'm doing right now is I'm tucking this handle all the way down and then bringing it in like that, and that's how you can get the cover on now. So first of all, oh, that needle's down though. Just get it clear of the material. There we go. Let me just set this down for a second. I'm going to go grab the cover. So you notice on this cover, hold on a second. I've got to end with music. It's like a thing. Hold on a second. So you notice on the cover that we've got this little hook end right here, and then we've got the locking mechanism right there. So just make sure when you put it on that you put the hook end on the right side of the machine, and it kind of just slides into there. Yep, we got it in place. You just have to line this up then, so that little lock goes in place. There we go. And I'm not going to lock it right now, but you can see we left the handle on, and now you would just lock this in. And I'll have to see if I have a key. Otherwise, you can use a screwdriver on these two to lock it, and then Debbie will have a nice secure way of carrying this. So who knows, maybe she'll have to have a screwdriver with her anyway, if not to take the hand crank off to lock and unlock the case. Although they sell these keys aftermarket as well, and if I don't have one, she could always order one. They're not that ridiculously expensive. So again, a very impressive run. Again, you've already seen, we started here. And we ended up, and this, I'll just show you the thickest one. I'm not going to show you all of them again. But we ended up here for our tie-in leather. That was our super small stitch there. So a definite success. I'm very excited to have been able to take this machine from a fairly rough state, especially from a standpoint of how it was sewing, and being able to marry up this wonderful 1922 machine, again 98 years old, with a bentwood cover that I happen to have in the workshop, and then stain them to match and get a finished product like that. Isn't that spectacular? So congratulations to Debbie Carver and finding a real treasure at Goodwill. I don't know if she bought it online or bought it in the store, but we were able to add a little bit of my magic to it and leave her with something that is, I would say, is heirloom quality, quite honestly. So stay tuned for other great premieres where you'll see beautiful objects become even more beautiful. And with that, class is dismissed. All right, don't start running out of the classroom. Walking in the hallways. Thanks for watching, everybody. God bless.